Are CPR dummies based on a real person? Let's find out on a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True. Welcome back to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds made up, but it's really true. Part of the WCBE podcast experience, available on all podcast platforms, also the NPR app and website. My name's Michael Kent. This is episode 230. 230, jeez. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm currently at sea doing my show in the Atlantic Ocean on board a cruise ship, so we're running a rewind episode. How much fun was Alyssa Phillips last week, though? Really enjoyed having her on. If you haven't listened to last week's episode about the supposed Skylab 4 mutiny, go have a listen to that. It's a great one. And as of recording of this, the SpaceX Dragon capsule has successfully made it to the stranded astronauts in space and docked with the ISS. It brought 4 new NASA crew members to the ISS. It's supposed to transport Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams home. Looks like halfway through this week, maybe Wednesday, they're supposed to come back. I'll be looking out the windows of my cruise ship. I'm going to see if I can see them coming down when they get back. Also, don't forget to join the Patreon. It's the best way to give back to this project. If you've enjoyed the hundreds of hours of entertainment and education we've provided, consider becoming a Tizitor on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. There's a link in the show notes to join. It's very easy. There's even a free trial to check out. Once again, patreon.com/Michael Kent. So let's get into this week's Rewind episode. This was originally released September 20 of 2021, and the story begins by talking about the origin of CPR.
Hi, Michael. This is Drew. I don't know if you've heard this, but I found out that the face of most CPR dummies was actually modeled after a dead person from 19th century France. I thought it was a fascinating story and perfect for your show, which I love, by the way. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Drew. This is pretty interesting, and I have to say, I really hate the episodes that make me use French words, but this episode will be about l'inconnu de la Seine. Or here's my... I'm so bad at French pronunciations. Here we go. L'inconnu de la Seine. I hope that's okay. For those of you who are French speakers, tell me how to improve. I don't know how to say these words. It takes place in Paris in the late 1880s and Norway in the late 1950s, around 1960. And listen, if I botch some French words, please feel free to excoriate me in emails or on Twitter. I can take it. After all, Scott Baio called me a Karen on Twitter last week and sent hundreds of his Twitter minions after me. I have thick skin. Or in French, peau épaisse. And yes, I did just translate that in Google on peau épaisse. Let's start the story. So we're going to go to the 1950s, and the story starts with the polio epidemic. James Otis Elam was a physician and respiratory researcher in the U.S. who discovered the concept of rescue breathing. That is the idea that exhaling into a person's mouth gave them enough oxygen to help keep them alive. He had been working with iron lungs during the polio epidemic, and along with Dr. Peter Safar, helped to develop a new life-saving technique called cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. This was in the late 1950s, and soon the method of rescue breathing and CPR was being taught as a legitimate life-saving practice. Side note, it should be stated that television and movies have given people a false expectation as to the effectiveness of CPR. There was a study done by the New England Journal of Medicine that showed CPR in TV shows had a 75% success rate, whereas in real life, the success rate is much lower in a person who's not breathing and has no circulation. But with that said, it's effective enough to still be used and taught. And in the absence of medical professionals, it's something that anyone can learn and could help some patients until medical assistance arrives. But how can it be taught? When it was first developed, students practiced on each other. That's right, you had people blowing into the mouth and lungs of people who were breathing normally. And you can still find instructional videos of people doing it this way. After a while, we figured out that this is dangerous, especially the chest compressions that are taught as part of CPR. It creates significant trauma. If you know anyone who has received CPR, you might know that it's common for the ribs or sternum to be bruised or even cracked in the process. This is where we meet the most kissed girl in the world, a fictional woman named Resusci Ann. Dr. Peter Safar knew there was a need for a way to practice CPR without using healthy people as subjects. He expressed this to a Norwegian doctor, Bjorn Lind, who knew of a Norwegian toy maker, Asmund Laerdal. He approached Laerdal about creating a lifelike toy, a dummy that could be used to practice mouth-to-mouth breathing and chest compressions. Laerdal was on the forefront of creating toys with PVC faces, a doll called Laerdal Ann. And Laerdal Ann was named Toy of the Year and had become a bestseller in Europe. And this had led him to create realistic-looking dummies with wounds for military training. So he was a natural fit to create the CPR dummy that Safar and Lind were talking about. The result was a dummy that, to this day, we know as Resusci Ann. It was unveiled at the 1960 International Symposium on Resuscitation in Norway, and it was instantly so successful that the Laerdal Company was no longer a toy maker. Their new mission would be saving lives. Today, the American Heart Association credits Laerdal products with training 500 million people in CPR and having saved 2.5 million lives. The original Resusci Ann dolls were very simple in design, but today they make full-size mannequins that provide realistic biofeedback and sync data to smartphones as the training takes place. But our episode today focuses on the face of the dummy. It came from a very peculiar place, and I'll tell you all about that after a quick break. If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link.
Hey, I'm Cliff Baumgardner.
And I'm Harrison Stewart.
If you're like us, you probably grew up watching the Discovery Channel classic, Mythbusters.
From rocket cars to chicken cannons, Mythbusters proved there's no question too big, too small, or too ridiculous to put to the test.
Now we're going back to rewatch the show from episode 1, and we want you to follow along. Join us as we revisit every single myth, moment, experiment, and explosion from throughout the show's legendary 14 seasons. Subscribe now so you don't miss one.
I'm John DeSando, host of Back Talk. This podcast is an extension of the long-running, award-winning movie review show, It's Movie Time. Back Talk features additional content and banter with guests about new movies. If you want more insight and information about what's playing now in theaters and online, find Back Talk at the WCBE Podcast Experience on WCBE.org. You'll be happy you did.
When Laerdal was developing the Resusci Ann CPR dummy, they realized that medical professionals were predominantly male at the time and might feel uncomfortable giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a male dummy. They were looking for a female face to use as a model, and it turned out there was already a quite famous one. Now let's jump back in time all the way to the late 1880s. The story of L'Inconnu de la Seine has various roots, but the result of all of them are the same: a plaster casting of a young girl's face. The face has delicately closed eyes and a calm expression. Her mouth has a slight, almost knowing smile with the edges turned up. Her hair is short, parted down the middle. Some claim that the cast was the death mask of a young girl who died of tuberculosis in 1875. Some claim that it wasn't a death mask at all, but it was the face of the daughter of a mask maker in Germany who asked her to model for him. But the predominant story is the legend of the young woman who was pulled out of the River Seine in the late 1880s. An unknown girl was found in the river near the Quai des Louvres, a walking area near the River Seine. She was anonymous. No one knew her identity, her social station, or her cause of death. She had no obvious signs of foul play, so suicide was suspected. The custom at the time was to put bodies on display at the Paris mortuary for people to identify them. There were so many bodies pulled out of the river at that time that a special morgue with a public viewing area had been built. That remained open from 1868 until 1909. And in 1889, the public viewing area of the morgue was a more popular tourist attraction than the zoo, the Louvre, and the Eiffel Tower, which had just been built. But despite the crowds, despite days going by, this one particular girl went unclaimed and unidentified. The local population became intrigued by the story of the girl, not only that she was a mystery, but that her facial features were so calm and beautiful. The mortuary had a local mask maker come and make a death mask of the girl. This was another practice that was a custom of the time, when it came mostly to notable figures. But in this case, the local population was intrigued, so her face became known as L'inconnue de la Seine, the woman of the Seine. It wasn't long before plaster copies of the mysterious woman's death mask started showing up for sale at shops along the river, and then throughout Paris, and before long, it was common to see the mask hanging in any high-class drawing room in Paris. Her face offered mystery, beauty, and Parisians would build their own stories around her origin, where she came from and how she died. English poet and author Richard Le Gallienne wrote a novella in 1900 based on the face called Worshipper of the Image, in which a poet falls in love with the mask. In 1910, a German author, Rainier Maria Rilke, wrote the following passage in his novel. The caster I visit every day has two masks hanging next to his door. The face of the young one who drowned, which someone copied in the morgue because it was beautiful, because it was still smiling, because its smile was so deceptive, as though it knew. The mask lived on through these works, which still continue to this day, by the way. The mask is referenced in several films and albums of the last decade. So when we jump forward from 1900 to the late 1950s, it makes sense that when Asmund Laerdal was designing his CPR dummy and wanted to use a female face, he would choose this famous and intriguing mask as the face of his Resusci Anne doll. If you look at those early CPR dummies from the 60s, you can definitely see the resemblance. And even today, when you look at Laerdal's Resusci Anne doll, they still call it that today, by the way, you can see the face of L'inconnue de la Seine. Using the death mask of a drowning victim to create an educational tool may seem morbid until you think about how famous and intriguing this image was. And the thought of a young girl without an identity going on to save millions is just one more fantastic story that we have to tell about her. She became the most kissed girl in the world. Sort of a strange and morbid story today, so we're going to lighten it up a little bit. Now, it's time for the part of the podcast where I call a friend, and today I'm calling Dan Wilbur. Dan is a comedian and the author of 2 humor books, How Not to Read and Never Flirt with Puppy Killers. His work has been featured on SiriusXM, College Humor, The Onion News Network, and he's been featured in sketches for IFC, MTV, Funny or Die, The Today Show, all kinds of great stuff. Dan recently opened for Patton Oswalt at the Beacon Theater in New York City. Dan Wilbur, good to see you again.
Hi, it's great to see you. I'm happy to be here in my own apartment.
Here being now. Where is here?
I'm in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, we just had Maria Dakotas on the show, who's also in Brooklyn. Very funny comedian. You wrote a few books. You wrote How Not to Read and Never Flirt with Puppy Killers. And when I say
Yes.
Never Flirt with Puppy Killers, it is a very funny book title, and it's even funnier when you know what that means. Can you briefly describe what that means?
Never Flirt with Puppy Killers is a better book title for Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Did you know that John Steinbeck wanted to call Of Mice and Men? This is what he wanted to call it. He wanted to call it Something That Happened. Not a very good title. Authors are notoriously bad titlers, so I like to go back and market it better for them. So Never Flirt with Puppy Killers really is the moral. If he's killing mice, I guess what can you do? But that was like an accident, and the puppies were an accident. But don't flirt with someone who's gonna kill you.
It's a good book. I have a copy of it upstairs, and I think I got it from you the very first time I met you, in whatever city that was, to make this story interesting.
In Albany? No, in Buffalo.
Buffalo? That sounds right. That sounds right.
Buffalo.
It was the best thing that ever happened in Buffalo.
It was
outside of the amazing wings. So today we're playing for this first one. We'll play for posting an embarrassing childhood photo on Instagram. Does that sound good? So if you get it wrong, you'll have to post an embarrassing childhood photo. Do you have one that you could maybe
I have
post?
terrible news. I've already posted them all.
You'll post one again, I guess.
I was a 12-pound, 11-ounce baby, and I posted that recently, and people are still
just roasting.
People are writing to news companies and like, you got to report on this.
This is
something wrong with this man.
This is the thing that happened a few decades ago, but it was a story that you missed.
I didn't open my eyes until I was 1.
Wait, what?
Because the cheeks were so big. Okay,
that
was more of a visual joke.
I'm thinking some medical thing. I'm sorry to hear that. That's horrible.
I was medically 12 pounds.
Medically could not see. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Here's your question. The face of the CPR dummy that we commonly see came from which of these unlikely sources? Was it A, patterned after Margaret Thatcher's face as a teenager? B, was it taken from the death mask of a drowning victim? Or C, was it designed by a blind person?
I'm going to go with B, death mask, because it's the most metal answer.
You are correct. When in doubt,
Yes!
go with metal. I will post an embarrassing childhood photo on my Instagram. I've got quite a few. One of them I posted recently, which is just me. I took a Mr. Potato Head toy into the Sears portrait studio with us when my family went to do that. It must have been my favorite toy. I don't know why, but it's sitting on the table next to me, and I'm very proud of it. So that one, I can't post that one. I've posted a ton, but yeah, there was this is a really interesting story. A very famous death mask in the late 19th century called L'Inconnu de la Seine. And I suck at French pronunciation. It was essentially an unknown, unclaimed young girl with a beautiful, calm face that was so intriguing that they made death masks of it that hung in rooms all over Paris. And when in the 1950s, that was the basis for the face of CPR dummies that we even see today. Crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I just hope that my death mask is not detailed, because my face is going full Jason Robards, just slack.
Maybe
my whole face is going to go.
Maybe you can put a thing in your will to where they can do a little facelift on the death mask.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Before the plaster cures, just sort of pull it up a little bit.
I don't want plastic surgery now. I just want to be remembered as being a little younger.
It's cheaper anyway. Right. Yeah, I don't need it. Listen, you're going to be dead a lot longer than you were alive.
Yeah, that's right.
So in perpetuity, you'll be remembered for having a lifted face. Yeah, I think it's a crazy, weird story. And I was talking to a gentleman from Scotland yesterday. The Magic Convention was here in town in Columbus. So wizards from all over the world would come in for 3 days and teach each other magic tricks. And I was telling the story to this gentleman, Hugh from Scotland. And he knew about it because when he studied to be an EMT, they taught them that story while they were learning CPR. And I don't think I would want to know that. While I was about to put my mouth on this dummy, being told, oh, yeah, and what you're putting your mouth on is fashioned after a 19th century dead girl. Right. It's somewhat morbid when you think about it that way.
It is.
For the next,
I mean, it's better than thinking that she's real. Or, I
That's-
mean, like alive.
that's true. I'm sure those people exist too. That we
Got to talk to
shouldn't
my
talk
priest before I can kiss this. Okay.
That's the way Mike Pence learned EMT, learned CPR.
On a live person.
Yeah, he had to get permission from his wife before he could practice on the dummy.
There it is. That's what I was thinking.
He
Yes,
asked
yeah.
if it
Yeah.
was a female dummy or a male dummy first.
Yes. You know that you're not supposed to do the mouth to mouth anymore.
Is that
If anyone's listening,
this is new information to me.
I think you're supposed to do like 15 pumps of the chest
Mm-hmm.
and then just leave the mouth alone.
Really?
But I could be wrong. And it's mostly not because it doesn't work, but because people giving CPR pass out, I believe, is
the person administering the CPR passes out.
you eventually get so tired that you can't do it anymore. And so they were like, let's just stick with the pumps.
That's a weird
And I
reason
think
because it's like this works, but it also makes people tired. So don't do it.
Yes.
That's
It's different for drowning, and I just know that they updated it because I'm CPR certified.
Are you really?
Just in case. Yeah, man. I live in a city.
That's-
You gotta get vaccinated for everything, and you gotta learn how to make a tourniquet. 'Cause
Yeah.
you never know what's gonna happen.
I feel I can make a tourniquet. I had to take
You're
survival
also
training.
you're not supposed to do tourniquets anymore.
Oh, you
By the
just
way.
learned a bunch of antiquated knowledge.
Yeah, I did. I learned all this when I was in high school, and they were like, by the way, tourniquets could like easily, cause someone to go into shock because
Wow.
if you make it wrong.
Yeah.
So they're like, don't actually do that. But anyway,
I had to
here's
take,
how you do it.
I had to take SEER training on one of my military tours when I was performing for the military, like survival, evasion, recovery, something training, and I had to learn like how to do some of that stuff, but not like the
Yeah.
real hands-on version of it, just like a PowerPoint. So
In theory, I know how to do this.
that's very strange. So all right, let's move on. For this next question, we're playing for 70 internet points.
Oh boy,
I don't know how many you currently have acquired, but you're going to get 70 more if you get this question right.
too many.
For
count.
people who go into cardiac arrest outside of a hospital and don't receive CPR, the survival rate is around 8%. When those people receive CPR outside of the hospital, their survival rate jumps to what?
Okay, so do I have to like get the exact percentage?
No, I will give you multiple choice.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, before you even say it,
Mm-hmm.
my guess is that it does not go up very high
Okay.
because it's once you're in bad enough shape, and you're trying,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard.
So 8% is when you're already in the hospital, and
Mhm.
or excuse me, 8% is if you do not receive CPR.
Okay.
This is when you're outside of the hospital, right? Because all these numbers are different if you're in the hospital. If they're giving you CPR in a hospital, it's a much different case.
Right.
If you're outside of the hospital and you receive the CPR, here are your three choices. A, 22% survive. B, 9% survive. Or C, 75% survive.
Okay. Again, I'm going to say B. Yeah, I'm going to say B.
B, 9%.
Yes.
The answer is A, 22%. So yeah,
I overcorrected.
you did, and correction is needed because there was a study in the New England Journal of Medicine that showed in movies and TV, CPR, the person survives CPR 75% of the time. They analyzed a whole bunch of CPR uses in modern television and film, and 75% is an unrealistic number. We should set our expectations to under a third of the time.
I thought it was going to be a trick question where they're like, if you're in the hospital, you're just going to catch some other weird bacteria. I've watched like enough House that
Yeah.
I know when you go to the hospital, that's a very dangerous place. I'm not trying to, if you're listening to this and you need to go to, if you're listening to this on the way to the hospital, you should still go. But
we've already
I'm just
established, Dan, at this point in the podcast that if you're listening to us talk about medicine, don't do what we say. Because
Yeah. Well,
we've
I
talked
just
about don't do mouth to mouth, don't do tourniquets, don't
Yeah.
just just, maybe you should just modernize your training. If you're getting CPR training, go and get modernized, and then we'll be good. This is not a medical podcast. Do not take any of this advice seriously.
I was just thinking of the idea of like, oh, I'm going into cardiac arrest. Would it be better for someone to just defibrillate me right here?
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing.
Should I go to the hospital? No, there's a James Bond where he defibrillates himself, and
oof.
Seems like
if there's a defibrillator,
that was better than going to the hospital.
Yeah, if there's a defibrillator on the wall, that's probably best case if you've got a bunch of untrained people around. But no, if you do nothing, you're 8% of survival. You do the CPR, 22%. So
great.
There you go. Just make sure that you've studied what the most recent protocol is.
Well,
for
you're
CPR.
protected by a good Samaritan law, so you should just get in there, start punching stuff. Where is the heart? You start slapping the person in the face. Is this how I do it? Anything's better than nothing.
I've got Narcan in my purse. Will that work?
Probably.
Question 3. For this question, we are playing for a coveted The Internet Says It's True sticker. They're extremely valuable, very hard to come by, except I did give a lot to friends at the Magic Convention this weekend. But if you're not a magician, you're not a wizard, they're hard to come. You have to win you either have to join Patreon, in which case you get one, or you have to be on the show and win the third question. Which one of these is a nickname for CPR? Here are your choices. A, the tongue of life. B, the kiss of life. Or C, the jaws of life.
I'm going to say the kiss of life.
You would be correct. The kiss of life.
Tongue's too dirty. Jaws of life is when you get
stuck in a car
and you're stuck in there. That's what I'm going to need when I live out my fate as a 12-pound baby and become a 400-pound adult or whatever. I don't know.
So you see yourself on a journey to return to the same proportions as you were born.
I see myself as levying the waters, the inevitable flood that's coming for us all, except instead of it being external, it is completely internal. I will one day need CPR and, a doctor's help to help me lose weight again.
If the pandemic didn't break that levee, then I think you're going to be
broke
fine.
it. You're seeing me now that I'm back in the world.
And I'm also seeing you from the shoulders up right now. So I did gain 25 pandemic pounds right away. Right, like we're talking first month, and I haven't been able to lose. I haven't tried to lose it either, but I haven't been able to really be motivated.
I found that I was really thriving when the weather was nice, running, eating right, and it's because I wasn't seeing my friends who force feed me and buy me beers.
Yeah.
So I was finally like, wow. Maybe I'm not sad. Maybe it's other people that are the problem. And now I'm back. Now I'm just back.
I do better when, I've been on the road more now that things are starting to open up a little bit. And I do better on the road because I can't just sit and eat snack food and sit in front of the TV all the time. I'm always moving.
Yeah, you're moving to the poutine that's available at the...
I don't seek out... I do occasionally, if I'm extremely tired, I'll make bad choices and seek out comfort food, which when I'm on the road generally is Buffalo Wild Wings. Because there's a lot of consistency, and that's what I always really like is consistency when I'm on the road.
Sure.
I want to know that I'm going to get a good meal. I don't have time to worry about getting a bad meal and then having to eat again.
And they have a trivia game, so you can just sit there.
Which is nice. I'm pretty good at the trivia. Yeah. That's how I find my next week's topics.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to get
stolen all of these from Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yes. Buffalo Wild Wings, where you learn about dead girls in the River Seine when you're eating your wings. No, this not where that came from. Question 4. For this question, we are playing for an embarrassing story. So if you get it right, I'll tell you an embarrassing story. If you get it wrong, you have to tell me one. I don't know.
On the podcast?
Yeah, like just a quick, just a couple minute embarrassing story. You don't have to do material. I'm not paying you to do material, so you don't have to do something from,
I don't know why I'm setting myself up like I'm going to get this wrong.
Well, this one, I think this one you'll get. Okay. You had talked about how they no longer tell you to do mouth to mouth, but they do still want you to do chest compressions. Which one of these songs is famously used to demonstrate the correct rate of chest compressions? There are three choices.
But I'll tell you before you even give me the multiple choice.
Let's do it.
It's the Bee Gees, Staying Alive.
You are correct. It is the Bee Gees, Staying Alive. I want you to know what my other choices were going to be. The
Yes,
Devil.
please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin
The Devil Went Down to Georgia or 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover were the other two choices.
And you're counting the pumps.
Yeah.
You're like, one, step, get out the back, Jack.
Yeah.
Make a new plan, Stan. But it's not to the rhythm. You're just counting. You're like, I got to remember all these. So I make sure that I get to the 50th pump.
That's not going to save anyone, but it is a way to leave your lover, I guess.
I didn't mean to ruin it because those are funny answers.
No,
I always
am
know.
impressed. I am impressed when I don't have to read the multiple choice. That's fantastic.
Devil Went Down to Georgia is a fantastic, it might even be close to the Bee Gees.
I think it's too fast, probably. Probably too fast.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That's double. You're going to revive the person twice as fast.
Twice as fast, yeah. And then they're going to be superhuman. They're going to have a 200 BPM heart rate.
Well, they'll have met the devil, and they'll come back and tell you the story.
But
I just beat the devil in a violin contest, fiddle contest.
I know the Staying Alive was almost memed because there was a very famous scene from The Office about staying alive. They're doing a CPR class and failing miserably at the CPR, and then Dwight ends up cutting the face off the CPR dummy and doing like a Silence of the Lambs type thing with it.
Well, I just want to say that I went to a party with a bunch of doctors, and they were explaining how they had to practice on cadavers. How it was the weirdest. The first thing you do with the cadaver is you do the chest compressions. They teach you how to do it on a real body. You don't get a fake.
I didn't know that.
Child. So you work on the cadaver, and the first thing they teach you is staying alive. So now staying alive is ruined for them because there's all these doctors in a room seeing a cadaver up close for the first time.
Horrible
and now
conditioning.
They can never listen to the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a great thing. And I hope the Bee Gees are proud that they've saved lives.
When I hear some of the music that's in my magic show, when I'm driving, or if I'm in someone else's car and a song comes on, because if it's in my car and a song comes on that's in my show, I will change it. But if it's in, a store or somewhere where I can't change it, I get anxiety because I'm I feel like I have to be doing something. I feel like I'm my heart will skip because I feel like I'm supposed to be, I'm about to go on. There's a association. Imagine if that feeling, instead of, oh, I got to go do a magic show, it was, I'm thinking of dead bodies right now. How bad? That's horrible.
They get used to it. The sad thing about doctors is that we're all born with the same level of disgust, but doctors get so used to seeing everything that they don't, they're not going to faint at the sight of blood anymore, and they're not going to faint when they see a dead body. And so really what I'm trying to tell you is that doctors are psychopaths. We got to watch out for them.
We're training them.
And they're thinking about dead bodies no matter what song's on.
There are some more songs. The New York Presbyterian Hospital compiled a list of other songs that can be used. And these are some things from the list. The list includes Hanson's Bop,
nice,
ABBA's Dancing Queen, and Missy Elliott's Work It. Those are all songs that you can also revive a person to.
You flip it and reverse it.
Yeah.
You screw it up and you turn the person on their back. Turn the person on their stomach. And then I just want to go back and tell you that exactly what you're describing with the music, making your heart rate go up or something, is why you should never, ever make a specific ringtone for either your significant other or a close friend or your boss. You will lose that job or you will get out of that relationship, and then you'll hear Flight of the Bumblebee and you will feel insane for 2 minutes.
Yes.
So just don't ever do that. I did it with an ex, and then it was a bad time every time I heard it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The sense memory is very strong. I have to tell you an embarrassing story, and I've got a quick one. I was at a conference where we go to get booked by colleges, and there was a gentleman on stage, a comedian, who did a 5-minute showcase, which is called a sampler, as you know. And he was very funny, but the audience didn't really understand him because he's a weird guy. And wearing a hat, long hair, beard. I leave the theater after his set, and maybe 20 minutes later, I see him walking down the hallway. And I was like, hey, really good set. That was awesome. And he goes, oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it. And I said, I feel like they didn't get you as much as they should have, which I shouldn't have said. That's a rude thing to say, but I was trying to bond with the man. You know, I'm like I feel like 5 minutes is tough. They really like don't have time to really get it. You know, and he was like, no, I thought it went pretty well. It was pretty good. And then I turn around. He leaves and goes through the door, and I turn around, and then I see the comedian coming down the hallway. I was talking to a completely different person who went along with the whole thing, knew that I had made references to comedy, I think. I said, you know, really great jokes and stuff. No, this man was a guitar player for a band that just happened to be wearing a very similar outfit and went along with it as to, I guess, either have fun with me or not embarrass me or whatever. And once I saw the other guy, I didn't approach him, but I did go back to the guitar
you got
player.
A second. They gave you a second chance.
I went back to the guitar. I did. Yeah, and I didn't. But I didn't redeem myself when I went back and I saw the guy who I was talking to, the guitar player. I just walked up to him with a slow clap, and he was laughing. He was like, "I felt so bad, but I didn't want to say anything." So it was an embarrassing moment, but it happened.
I love that. I wish you had gone up to the real comedian and been like, you know what? You suck. I missed my shot before. Yeah, your band sucks. Your band sucks. You don't even play music. You just tell jokes. That's not music.
It's not music.
And confuse everybody.
I actually did it again last night. I confused one magician for another magician because they have similar hair, and I saw him from the back. I need to just stop talking to strangers.
You're face blind.
I guess so. Well, it was the back of his head. And the other guy, he was wearing like a fancy hat and a denim jacket.
It was the front of his head. It was the front of his head, but it was a beard. And you're like, what is this front hair?
Last time I saw you had that on the back of your head. It's weird that you've moved it.
So weird. I love it.
It would be pretty great to write either a sitcom or maybe a screenplay about a face blind person who that gets them into trouble. I feel like that maybe the joke wears out somewhat quickly, though.
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, it must have been 30 Rock probably did like a whole season where someone's face blind.
That would make sense. That seems like an affliction that would be on the show.
Yeah.
So question number 5 is for all the marbles, Dan. If you get this wrong, I'm banning you from the show, never to be asked on again, ever. You were on Joke Story Trick. This is your second appearance on this podcast, but this is it if you don't get this one right. And this is a question. This is actually, I think, the third or maybe fourth week I've asked this question in a row to the guest, and I like the answers, so we're going to stick with it for a while. Here it is.
Okay.
What piece of advice would you give to 17-year-old Dan Wilbur?
All right. There's a lot going through my head, but mainly, I would tell him to calm down. That not everything is. You should just be less of a spaz. I don't want to be negative, but not every interaction is going to be remembered for all time. And I'm not saying that all 17-year-olds are narcissists, but I was. So a part of that was feeling really bad that, I said the wrong thing and I did the wrong thing, and a lot of social anxiety, which I stifled with substances, which just makes it worse. And then, so that's what I would say. It was like, you don't need booze. What you need is to calm down and relax, because everybody's just, everyone's just trying to have a good time here. You could just relax and be a person. But instead, from about 17 until 30, I felt on stage.
Yeah.
And probably a product of being on stage, And
now that you're, once you hit 30, it's much easier to let go of those interactions that you have in those memories until The Devil Went Down to Georgia comes on the radio.
Yes,
and then you're
and then it comes back
into the
Flight of the Bumblebee.
Flight of the Bumblebee.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I was talking to my friend Zach about COVID specifically, and if you don't want to talk about that, feel free to cut this. That what's funny about the past couple years is that you finally got to this place where you were comfortable and you're like, well, not everyone's going to remember every single interaction. I should just relax. And then quarantine happened and you only saw like one or two people a week. And so you'd have like a weird interaction with someone and then it just stayed with you. And you're like, I guess I I guess I just have to live with, I said that weird thing, and you're not used to socializing. So you just like think about it. Like there's a woman walking her dog in my neighborhood, and I didn't see her for 2 weeks after I said, something stupid. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, hey, I said that stupid thing. I'm sorry. And she was like, yeah, I was thinking about it for last 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
It's like the difference between Twitter and Facebook. You can write something stupid on Twitter and nobody knows tomorrow, but on Facebook, you have to keep getting notifications for the next week when more people see it and keep commenting on it.
And somehow Facebook is also in that realm of, I remember something snide you said in the comments section 7 years ago. And so I'm still upset about it versus Twitter, where someone could, just call you a nasty name and you'd be like, I'm going to continue with my life. I don't care.
Dan, I will count all of that as a correct answer. So you are allowed back on the show. We've gotten so far off from the show topic, which is fine. That's why I bring people on to have fun and to we can end on a lighthearted mood and not talking about a dead girl from hundreds of years ago.
Wow, we got to mental health.
We did get a little bit into mental health. We got into the pandemic. We got into songs and songwriting. We got into memory. We got into sense memory. And it's been a pleasure. Dan, they can find you at danwilbur.com, and that's Wilbur, WILBUR. You're at Dan Wilbur on Twitter, at Dan Wilbur Comedy on Instagram. What are you working on? Where can we see you?
I'm back in the city. I'm doing stand-up. I got some shows coming up. Those are on my website. So if you're in New York, you can come see me. I'm working on more writing projects and websites. So, just keep checking back.
Fantastic.
Follow me on Instagram. I'll post all about it.
And TikTok as well. You got some great videos on TikTok. So find him there. Thank you so much for joining us again, Dan.
This was a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that's all for this week. Thanks to Drew for the show topic and to Dan Wilbur for being my guest. I asked a young Norwegian toy maker to say the following.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. Don't forget to join up on Patreon if you want to see the unedited video of the guest appearance or to hear bonus episodes. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. Also, if you learned something that you didn't already know from the show, please visit iTunes and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That's the rule. You gotta do it. That helps us a ton because that's how the algorithm works, to get the podcast suggested to more people. And that way we can keep learning something new. If the internet says it's true.
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help make this show possible. Sean Brown, Catherine Morgan, Taylor Hurt, Tony Ford, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Matt McVeigh, Jim Martin, Joanne Martin, and the show's official Emperor Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge, and additional music this week was from Kevin MacLeod under Creative Commons license and Asher Falero. All audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.